Hey there! I thought today we would have a look at some of these pens. It's not really the pens I'm interested in right now. This is the Alpha by Aurora. But Iwanacell lent me this to show you some of the different nibs that Aurora does. So I'm going to start with this one. I may be dipping these pens. The ink will be Kaandash Saffron. We start with a fine. Okay. There's also a broad in the set, but the feed is labeled M for medium, so I'm not sure if it's really a broad. That's why I'm leaving it out. I have reviewed an Aurora Ypsilon, which had a broad nib on it. So if you really want to see an Aurora broad nib, you can check out that review. Go to my website and you'll find an index. Okay, so here we have a fine. The Aurora nibs are known to have some feedback. This one definitely does. I don't think it's unpleasant though. It just makes you feel like you're really using a fountain pen. And yes, it's dipped, but even inked up with a converter, it has a very nice consistent ink flow. Ebonite feed, that's very nice, good ink flow. Line variation. Quite a bit actually, which is very nice. And that allows you to add a little bit of character to your handwriting. The next one, medium nib. Give that a quick dip too. The broad nib also writes pretty much the same as this one, so I really don't know if that's an actual broad. This one, oddly enough, I find more feedbacky than the fine nib, which is a bit peculiar because of course medium nibs have a little bit more tipping than fine nibs, so you would expect them to have a little bit more to polish and be a little smoother, but there's actually more feedback here, I find. Also seems a little bit drier, and there is some line variation, but I think it's more pronounced in the fine nib. Also a nice nib, but we are now moving towards my more sort of favorite nibs, and nibs that you can't get from every manufacturer. So here we go with a stub, sort of a rounded off italic nib, and this is where things get really interesting, I think. Not every brand offers stubs anymore, which is a shame, because they're quite smooth to write with, also for cursive, because the edges of the tips are rounded off a little bit. But you get this really nice natural line variation. This is not because of pressure, it's just because of the shape of the nib. Of course, testing wetness in that direction is maybe not that sensible, but this is nice and wet. Line variation here, as I said, is natural. So this is all no pressure, and that's no pressure, so you get a very nice difference between diagonal strokes in that direction and diagonal strokes in that direction. And if you capitalize on that a little bit by really holding the nib perpendicular to the, or what do you call that, parallel to the paper, I suppose. Normally I would write in this angle, but if I write like this, then you maximize that line variation and you get a lot of expression in your handwriting. You can see the difference between this and that. Of course, you can put some pressure on it to emphasize that. But to me, to be honest, I think that kind of ruins the effect a bit. So you can definitely play around with that, and I think this is a very fun nib. That may actually be my favorite. Then there is an actual italic, so a crisper cut of the nib. Because it's crisper, you get even more line variation, but because the corners are so sharp, you can also cut into the paper. So this can feel less smooth, and you probably hear more feedback too. If you misalign that, it kind of slides into the paper, like that. So if I again put that sort of parallel to the paper. You really see that nice line variation, which is really quite pronounced here. Very thin side strokes like that, and really nice broad side strokes like that. But because it's crisper, as I said, it feels a little less smooth because of those sharp corners. So in this set, the stub is definitely my favorite. I think this is a beautiful nib, nice and smooth, but with a nice amount of line variation. Very well ground, making for a very pleasant writing experience. So there you have it. The broad I have used from Aurora was very pleasant. Also nice, quite wet, and of course broader than the medium. That speaks for itself. So you have some very nice nibs in the Aurora lineup. I really enjoy them, and I'll take the stub any day of the week. So thank you, Iwan for lending me this set. I appreciate it. I hope this is a useful overview of some of these nib options. High resolution pictures of the writing sample as well as the nibs will be on the website sbrebrown.com. I hope this was useful so far, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye bye.